I'm Artie Fahey, and we're with Mike Fuller today. Now, most of you are not going to recognize the name Michael Fuller, but you should. Mike is one of the guys that's been working with us at Bar Mills over the years to help make our dioramas even more special. Now, it's true, I do most of the building of the structures and the scenery and so on, but it's the little details that can really help your structures and your scenes tell a story. And little things may mean little things like white metal castings and so on, but oftentimes, even more important, are vehicles. Now, Mike is a master vehicle builder. He's built in N scale, HO, S, and O scale, and he's agreed to join us today and share with all of you many, many techniques that he's learned over the years in building very accurate and realistic vehicles for your model railroad. Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Art.
Well, let me ask you something, Mike. Exactly what do you have in mind as far as sharing with the other modelers out there? What did you bring with you, and what are your plans as far as in an instructional way for today?
Well, what I'd like to do is start right from opening up the box and how I paint the parts, sew on the sprue, sub-assemblies, adding detail to what you got, and altering vehicles, just the whole gamut.
Well, I know myself, for one, I don't build the vehicles for Bar Mills. Mike does. Matter of fact, Mike has gotten to the point of building them for individuals out there with model railroads, as well as other companies besides Bar Mills at this point. And he's shared his skills in so many different ways, and you've probably run across it, but he's one of those unknown commodities that we're more than thrilled to have with us today, Mike. And I'm going to turn this over to you for a little while, so whenever you're set, let's go, okay?
Thanks, Artie. Let's discuss. I'm ready. At this moment is the 1928 Model A Highway Miniatures Jordan kit. What you see here is two different versions of the same car. They're pretty basic. It's just how you paint them and what you put on them. So let's start with, this is the, I'm going to move this out of the way, move this over here. Basically what I do is I start out by gluing the body and chassis parts together except for the suspension. The glue that I use is a weld-on acrylic. I think I paid about $30 for this can as opposed to 10X, which is like $7 for a small jar. I use a 10X jar in a plastic, the cap off a can of spray paint, keeps it from tipping over. This goes on with a paintbrush, or you can find these little dabbers that work with it. I like it because it's quick acting and it dries invisible, and it works on capillary action. I also use super glue and super gel for small parts, depending upon what I'm gluing. So let's start with what we have here. Once the body and the chassis are put together, and I take the sprue, and everything is painted a flat color. On this car we're going to go flat black. On the police car, what I did is I shot the body white and then masked it off with some masking tape and then shot the black separate. Basically for the primer paints I use Walmart large cans of spray paint at $1.12 a can. So what I do, one of the things that irritates me with some of these photographs I see of model cars is that the wheels don't touch the ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I do that. Normally the wheels would be painted. These are painted white because I want them white walls. And what I use Testors has a paint, it's rubber. And it looks more like a tire than black spray paint. These haven't been painted yet, but they are usually painted right on the sprue of the rubber. Keep the wheels flat on the ground. I use a flat square surface. I turn the rear end around here. And I put glue in the cradle for the rear spring and then in the rear of the transmission. Set the chassis on there in the spot and it'll even itself out. After that's dry, what I do is the same thing with the front. The front is attached to these hemostats. Sounds good to me. I have the other wheel on, and again you square the wheels up and you do the same thing. You lift this up and you set your chassis in the slot here with a little bit of glue, and if it's on a flat surface the four wheels will level themselves off. This vehicle I'm going to use as a weathered vehicle. Normally I would have the wheels on if it was going to stay black like this, but I want to weather it. So what I use for weathering is RIT dye and alcohol, which is in this jar. And then I use Bar Mills weathering compound. Right after I bought the stuff, my granddaughter thought it was makeup, and for some reason she shook the whole thing up, so it's a mess, but it works great. What I do is I apply some of the ink or the RIT dye and alcohol on the top. And I use that as my palette. What it does is it gives me a nice wash on this. If you've ever seen a vehicle out in Nevada where it's been sunbaked, it's just a wash of rust on it. And if you want a little bit more, you can add it to it. On the running boards, there's a mat there, a rubber mat, and I use the rubber from Testers for that. I like to get the underneath too sometimes, just in case somebody looks at the bottom of them. And the inside fender wells. And let's get the engine and all this down here. Alright, we're going to do the same with the sedan body. When I do the glass in these, I usually wear a one of those blue surgical gloves or medical gloves. I hate getting fingerprints on the windshield. That's another thing that, once you get them on the acetate clear glass, they don't seem to come out. And there you have it, to the top of the visor. And once it dries, you can go over it and add some streaks to it. Find a darker color in here and add streaks to the weld lines. And that's how I weather them. Now, as an example of a two-tone paint job, this is a 34 Ford pickup truck. Same thing, I paint the cab, the hood, and the bed all in one shot, and then the chassis again is done separately, probably with a can of Walmart black primer spray paint. I can show you a lot more stuff as far as different types of vehicles and how you can alter them. I use a lot of books as reference materials, which I'll show you as we move on. Alright, we waited a few minutes and it didn't show up quite enough, so what I did is I added a little bit more weathering to it. The place that really get rusted out is where your fenders meet the body, either in the front and the back. But you can add nice streaks to it, and like I say, then what I'll do is I'll paint the running boards here where the rubber is on with the rubber from Testers. So that's how I weather these, whether it's a truck, a train, an engine. Works out pretty good for me, especially on the small vehicles because they are kind of fragile. I like to paint my vehicles in two tones as much as possible. The paints that I use are Model Masters military paints. How I discovered these was a local hobby shop had bought a bunch of paints that nobody was buying. They were like Japanese interior submarine green or Russian aircraft blue. And they were selling them for like 69 cents a jar, so I scooped them up. I like to make some of the vehicles with a gloss paint job because I got to figure when they bought a vehicle in those times, it was probably over $1,000, and that was a lot of money. So I like some wild paint jobs. The decals on the vehicles come from a variety of sources. Sheepscott sells a large quantity of truck decals. The Ferrari decals are old ones from Auto World days. I happened to stumble upon those in a old hobby shop. Bought a couple pages of them. Wish I had bought more. This here is actually the REA truck that Jordan does, but how many REA trucks can you use? And you do see these in books, this type of vehicle. And it's good for with the doors open. Put a guy there loading stuff in the back end. Same with this one here. Make them look like you're doing something. I also like to try and put drivers in as much as I can, because there's nothing worse than a car with no driver in it. Most of my paint is applied with an airbrush. I use a Badger dual action. I use the acetate that comes in the kits for the windshields, and that is applied either with the liquid plastic glue that I use, or if it's delicate and in a tough spot, I will use the micro scale clear gloss. I'm not sure what they call it, but that's what I use. It dries clear. Very rarely will I use it in a windshield. These are different types of vehicles. This is a Woodland Scenics that I used a Jordan back end as far as the bed and the headboard. This is a Grapevine. The chain comes from Michael's Craft Store. It's a jewelry chain. It's like $2 for 5 feet, I believe it is. And spray painted with black paint. Looks pretty good for logging chain. This is a Jordan kit. This is also a Jordan kit that I made into a soda truck using scrap parts and some castings that I have. There's a driver in this one. That comes from the 1914 touring car that Jordan does. It's Stan Laurel. Again, everything's airbrushed on these. The bodies are done separate. This one here, I don't believe the hood's even glued on yet. I do different colors in the seats. This one's dark brown, this one's a light tan, and this one here is kind of a reddish brown. Again, the steering wheel's not in this, and I'm contemplating putting a driver in this truck here. I'd like to talk a little bit more about painting the vehicles. This is a 1928 Model A again, only it's got a taxi paint job on it. I use a lot of lacquer type paints. I like them because they dry quick. They are primered first. This one was primered white. Then the yellow coat was put on. Then it was masked with masking tape. I use good quality stuff. It was masked all the way around. Then it was shot with the orange. The yellow was not gloss coat, so I had to gloss coat the vehicle. Again, the decals were from Sheepscott, and then it was gloss coated total. And then I hand painted the roof on this. It's a gray primer, which is water based. Anything that I do with water based is usually hand painted. The wheels on this were done with the wire wheel, so you get a silver color to them. It was done with a Sharpie silver pen, and I just run around the inside rim. After that's done, then I use the rubber from Testers, and either spray it on first and then do the wheels, or I'll do it the wheels first and then paint them on. So the interiors I usually airbrush, or I'll paint them flat white and then paint them with water-based paint. And then I fit a driver inside. This is the taxi driver. Again, it's Stan Laurel. Jordan will sell you the wheels separate. They'll sell you Stan Laurel separate. They're about $1 a piece for the sprue. I do a lot of business with Jordan, so when I order stuff, I order large quantities of stuff from him. He's a pretty nice guy. I prefer to airbrush a lot of the parts on the vehicles. I like it because it puts on a thin coat, and you got a wider variety of colors that are available to you. The way the body was painted on this, the yellow, actually the body was painted flat white first so I could get a nice bright yellow on it. After the yellow dried, I masked it off with masking tape around the edge here, and then shot the orange. I have a pilot light on my stove, and I put everything on a cookie sheet. It helps dry everything quick. Once it's done, I had to gloss coat the whole vehicle, and I put the decals on, which is taxi, and it's got the checker on the side. These are done by Sheepscott, and then the roof was painted with a water-based paint. I prefer using enamel paints, and I thin it with a lacquer from Napa. The bumper and the wheels were done with a Sharpie pen after they're painted with rubber paint from Testers. These here were done white first because I wanted them to be white walls, like gangster white walls, which they did have in the 20s and the 30s. Once the white's dry, I take and either use the Sharpie to do the wire wheels, and then I take and paint with the rubber from Testers paint. The interior was done pretty much the same way. It was painted flat white, and then I used water-based paints to paint the seats. I paint the seats most any color that looks either between leather or they use gray, tan, something like that. One of the things that I'm really proud of is that no two vehicles of mine are ever exactly alike. We'll start with this vehicle here. This is a delivery truck. This is what I did to alter it. Just behind this window here, I cut the back end off. I used the rear doors on this vehicle as the back window. Then I took and cut off the back end of the vehicle, the fenders. What I'll do is I'll extend this out to the back end of this piece, which is off another truck, and then I'll put the suspension piece across the back underneath. Now you have a stake rack delivery truck. Now I cast my own detail, so that's where a lot of this stuff comes from. But you got to look, you constantly be on the lookout for detail stuff. This vehicle here is a center door Ford. What I did with this one to make it personalized is I cut out the top of the roof and replaced it with very thin ribs of basswood, which created the structure up on the top for the canvas roof. The canvas roof was made out of a tissue painted black, cut to size, and then glued in place. Once it's glued in place, then you tear it open with your X-Acto knife. The windows were cut, make them look like they were broken, and then I used like a number 80 drill to drill holes in the windows and the side of the body to look like bullet holes. The car comes with a motor. What I did is I kept the head off it, drilled 4 holes in the top, painted it silver, and then put the head on the side. The orange rag is nothing more than a tissue painted orange. When I got the kit, the headlight was missing off the driver's side, so I left it off and it was damaged in an accident. The fenders are crushed by heating up my tweezers and then bending the plastic so it looks like it's been in an accident. This truck here is a Woodland Scenics truck, and I saw the back end of this truck in a book that I have. I have quite a few books on model trucks, or not model trucks, on the real trucks. And it was scratch built out of plastic and basswood for the size. And again, I put a lot of detail inside the truck. What I like about it is that the truck is open, so you can see inside. And then what I did for the chains on the sides to hold the stuff in on the open parts, they ran chains across. What I used, I took some really fine wire, 2 pieces, taped them to my drill, took the other end and held onto it and turned the drill on. What it does is it twisted the wire and it looks like chain. The decals are from Jordan kit decals, and that's pretty much what it is. I like doing the older truck tires and car tires white because back in the 20s, that's what color rubber is white, and they didn't bother adding a dye to them. So I always paint the tires an off-white, antique white, something in that neighborhood. I use, on this vehicle, probably kind of hard to see them, but the wheels on these are wooden. And I use a marking pen that's wood stain. You get the color of the wood on the tires. You got to use your imagination. If you don't have a good imagination, then get a book on old trucks, because these guys were unbelievable, the stuff that they created, because basically what they got was a chassis, a motor, and maybe a cab if they ordered it. So basically the bodies on a lot of these big trucks were built by the people who bought the truck. Alright, where do I get all the wacky ideas for some of these trucks? Actually, you don't have too far to go. Just find a book on old trucks and you'll find some pretty wacky stuff that they did. This one's on the Mac EH, EJ, EM, all the way down to ES. Covers 1936 to 1950. I bought it because I like the truck on the cover. It's a Philco, a musical instrument of quality. A friend of mine has an Alps printer, and he printed these decals up for me. Some of the other books that I have, this is on Mac Model B, ABs. I mean, this is unbelievable, the picture, the graphics on this vehicle. And it doesn't have to be a Mac to do it. You can do it on any of the Jordan vehicles. Here's a jitney. And you could take one of the Jordan vehicles, one of the delivery vans, and basically just save the roof and the chassis and scratch build everything else. Let's see what else we got. Some dump trucks. An early dump truck. Look at this thing. I got quite a few on the Macs. This book here is a hardcover. It's classic trucks. And again, the cover shot is unbelievable. And it's filled with pictures like this. Most of this is European trucks, but still, they did some pretty wild stuff. And ideas for your grocery store, or discount, 13 and 1 $1. This is probably the best one I got. I had to buy 2 of these because one of them fell apart. They had glue job in it. I think the best picture in this book is the beginning. Hold on a second here. Yeah, I don't know if you can zoom in on that, but look at the crates on this truck. No cab. He's probably got a stick for a brake. Hard rubber tires. Unbelievable stuff. If you're into beverage trucks, here's 1910 to 1975. There's one on the Bulldog Max. And one on Studebaker trucks. One on tow trucks. Most of these books come from, this one here is from Classic Motor Books. They're out of Wisconsin, Osceola. They have a 1-800 number. It's 1-800-826-6600. This outfit has more books than I've ever seen, whether it's military, airplane, trucks like this, buses, fire trucks. They have books that fit into that category. Same with these books. These books can be got from Classic Motor Books too, but the phone number that they list in here is, hold on a second. It's Iconographics, P.O. Box 609 BK, Osceola, Wisconsin 54020. And they have a telephone number here. It's 800-289-3504. These Iconographic Photo Archive series is unbelievable. I'll list just John Deere tractors, A, B, C, D, John Deere 30 series. They also do stuff on auto racing. I picked up books on auto racing, on the GT40s and the Cunninghams. Awesome books, nothing but photographs with brief details inside. So if you want ideas for your vehicles, the books are out there. What I do if it's from Classic Motor Books is I go to Borders, order it from them, that way you don't have to pay shipping and handling. So there you go. Good luck building your trucks and your cars, and drive safely.
Well, Mike, I got to thank you for stopping by and doing this. And for those of you watching this, especially because it is shot in HD, you understand this is, like most bar mills things, really homespun. The modelers that have offered to work with us have been friends and bar mills associates for some time. And we weren't looking to hire some professional company to do this. We weren't looking to make these clinics concise or to make them short or to make them simple. What we're trying to do here is offer something that's very, very special. A real encyclopedia of all kinds of things, not just building kits, but building vehicles in this case. And in another video, we'll have someone speaking about scenery techniques and things you can use around the house. And of course, you have to have how to build structures, which is what we do here at Bar Mills. So again, Mike, thanks for your time, and I appreciate you stopping by. I hope Mike's hoping he didn't get any spinach between his teeth. I don't think that's a problem. Here again, any herky-jerky with the camera will work. You can blame me. Great equipment, wonderful technology, but not such a great cameraman. Thanks again from Bar Mills, for Mike Fuller, and of course myself, Artie Fagan.
Drive fast.